Well, hey everybody, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Great to be with you guys this morning. I hope you had a chance to get a good cup of coffee this morning. I'm going to show you what I'm drinking. I'm drinking a cup of coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, just one cream, one sugar, and the rest is goodness all the way. So I hope you had a chance to get a cup of coffee, and potentially, I'm sorry if I'm making you jealous, but it's good and I'm enjoying it. So the rest is history. But I want to tell you about this weekend for me because I had a great time with my family. Now, my family decided to take me to one of the greatest places on earth, the Philadelphia 76ers. They actually bought me some tickets and tickets for themselves so that we could go watch a game in person. And I have never had the opportunity to do that. Now, I've been to the Eagles and I've been to the Flyers when I was a kid with my dad. I even went to the Eagles in the old Vet Stadium, if anybody remembers that. But I've never been to the 76ers in Wells Fargo Arena, and that was so fun. It was low key because there weren't as many people, and also it was just like a party atmosphere the whole time. It was great to see my kids engage with it. My son got to get a picture with Franklin, the mascot, because he came and stood right next to us. It was awesome. I'm not gonna lie to you. But I also have to tell you this, because this was interesting. While I was preparing to go to the game, getting dressed and everything like that, I had this crazy daydream. So this story is a daydream. This isn't real, didn't really happen, but here's how it went. I had this daydream that I was going to go down and meet one of the best players in the NBA, Joel Embiid. He's 7 feet tall. And I thought maybe I'll go down and I'll have him sign my hat. And as the daydream progressed, I thought to myself, maybe he'll ask me what I do for a living and I'll have a chance to tell him I'm an associate pastor at a church in PA. And then I thought maybe he would ask me to be his personal chaplain and travel the country with him. And I finally thought maybe he'll pay me $1 million a year. Now, I was so enthralled with this daydream, I told my wife about it, and we fantasized for a minute about what it'd be like to make that kind of money and travel the country. But it was all just a daydream. And it's amazing to me how quickly my mind goes there. Because I don't want to admit this, but it's true. And it's true for a lot of us. That when I start to think about having large amounts of money, my mind goes crazy and I think about all the ways that I could potentially do that. And it just sounds so fun, like getting money is gonna be the thing that makes me happy. And I'm sure you guys can relate with that feeling. I know all of us wish we would have some more. It's just so easy for us to fall into this place where we think that that's the thing that we need to have in our life. And so we pursue it. But this reminds me of a story that Jesus told, because Jesus was brilliant and he told all these amazing stories to teach us lessons. But he was talking to his disciples about this particular idea, actually. And he told the disciples and the crowd that was listening to them this premise. He said, don't store up treasures here on earth, but store them up in heaven. And he described it like this. He said that here on earth, our treasures get destroyed by moths and by vermin and by thieves. Now, what's interesting is if you're as old as I am, I'm in my 40s, maybe you had a grandmother or two that when you went over to their house smelled like mothballs. And if you would open up their drawers, you realized there was literally mothballs in there. And that's because the generation that they grew up in was a generation where moth literally could get inside the cracks and crevices of your home and eat your clothes for dinner and turn them into powder or make holes in them. And yeah, they destroyed them. So it's an interesting word picture that Jesus gives us. And then he talks about vermin. And I can only imagine like mice crawling into my house and crawling into that box of candy that I've been hiding from everybody else and eating that candy and just leaving little shards of paper behind. But then I also think about the thieves that he mentions, because the more that we have, the more concerned we are about thieves. In fact, the more our security gets tightened down at our house, and the more that we worry about fraud and people stealing from us, the more money that we have, the more fear we have, because this world is one that will take everything that you have and not apologize for it. And so when Jesus says, don't store up treasure here on earth, it really does ring true for us, right? Because treasure here is fleeting. But what's wild about that is that we still do it anyway. We all get caught up in it about making more. We get excited about making more. We get bummed out about losing money. We really don't like it when we have to give it away during tax season. And so money just is so much a part of who we are and what we think we need. But Jesus says instead, we should store up treasure in heaven, where moth and rust and thief, they don't destroy. And I think that inevitably pushes us back to this one idea that Jesus has, because so many things in his word push us back to this idea where he said what his treasure is. He said that there's nothing more important. In fact, all the law and all the prophets hang on these two ideas, that we should love God with all of our hearts, all our soul, and all our minds, and all our strength. And then he said the second is like it, that we should love our neighbor like ourselves. Now, we might talk about this a bit, but here's why I think this is so important. Jesus says, don't spend your time storing up treasure here. In fact, store up treasure in heaven. Well, what is a treasure to Jesus? It's his relationship with his heavenly Father, and it's the way that we love the people that he was willing to go to the cross for. So that's what treasure is to Jesus, and he says I should shift my focus from what my treasure is to that treasure. And I think that's complicated for us, right? I think no matter how hard we try, there's something pulling us in the direction of trying to love the things of this world. And so we literally have to stop and pry our eyes away from what attracts us naturally and turn ourselves to what attracts Jesus. Because Jesus said this, and this is the verse that I memorized when I was a kid that I want to share with you this morning. He said that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Isn't that true? Because if my treasure is money, I'm gonna go after it as hard as I can. I'm gonna work as many hours as possible. I'm gonna push people out of the way so that I get the important positions. And I'm certainly not gonna elevate my neighbor. I'm gonna push my neighbor until I can get the things that my neighbor was going to get instead, right? I mean, if that's my treasure, then I'm focused on all the wrong things. But Jesus says, if the opposite is true, if my treasure is what's important to him, then everything about my perspective changes. So I gotta ask the question of you this morning, where's your treasure? Is this a good evaluation point? Are you recognizing in yourself that your treasure is most likely on the things of this world? It is for all of us, so no need to apologize, but it's good for us to see in the mirror that sometimes our treasure isn't what it's supposed to be. It's the opposite, in fact. So what's your treasure? And how could you today, in your time on Wednesday, decide to take your day and turn it towards Jesus and let your posture be one that says, Jesus, if loving God and loving others is important to you, then I'm going to let that be my treasure today too. How could you do that today? How could you decide to say, his treasure is now your treasure, instead of what comes so natural? Listen, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next week.